The most interesting thing about the Diddy trial to me is that we didn't get an Epstein trial.
Everyone's talking about the similarities of Sean Combs and Jeffrey Epstein and their sex trafficking ring. On the surface, they seem totally different, right? But both of them preyed on youth and ambition.
Okay, guys, Diddy's case just went from a Hollywood scandal to a full-blown international nightmare. Because now, Puff is sitting in a courtroom, listening to all this shocking testimony about all the nasty things he is allegedly engaged in. However, things took a pretty drastic turn after he started getting linked to the infamous Jeffrey Epstein, and let's just say Diddy totally lost it. On top of this, all the theories about his connection with Epstein are not making his case a lot easier. In fact, it's looking worse for him now. Why? Well, imagine getting dragged into the mess of a man whose name instantly screams conspiracy, corruption, and cover-up. I bet most of you will agree that Diddy doesn't want that right now. And I know what you're thinking. Nah, that's gotta be a reach. But the dots are connecting way too smoothly. Freak-off parties, hidden cameras, blackmail, young girls, intimidation. Sound familiar? Okay, let's break it down. We all know who Jeffrey Epstein was. The billionaire financier who didn't really finance anything, but instead ran a global trafficking operation. Not to mention how he somehow got the softest jail sentence ever in 2008, even after being convicted of sex crimes against minors. But as crazy as it might sound, all the mystery revolving around Epstein doesn't end there. Nope, because the guy mysteriously died in jail in 2019, just before he could name names. And the names he could have dropped allegedly included presidents, princes, prime ministers, and yes, some of your favorite celebrities.
Jeffrey Epstein's contact list boasted some big names in Hollywood. Alec Baldwin, Mick Jagger, and Michael Jackson, just some of the high-profile people uncovered in newly released documents from the Justice Department.
And get this, he might actually be associated with the man of the hour, Puff. Ever since the trial kicked off, Epstein's name has been going with Diddy like a twin. Like, everyone was trying to find the common things between the two. And let's just say, people found a lot. Not to mention how, before Diddy's name ever made it into courtroom whispers and blackmail theories, there was another name that haunted elites behind closed doors was Jeffrey's. You can say he's the OG when it comes to Hollywood elites lists. And nope, the Diddy list is only half as harmful as the infamous Epstein list. Now, if you think Diddy's downfall is explosive, wait until you remember how Epstein's ended. Back in 2011, Epstein told the New York Post, "I'm not a sexual predator, I'm an offender. It's the difference between a murderer and someone who steals a bagel." Yeah, it's not even made up. That's what he actually said. Like, basically suggesting that trafficking girls was just a lil bagel run. While most people would love to see him rot in jail, he was able to escape such after he died in 2019 while awaiting trial on federal sex trafficking charges. But his story started long before that. Jeffrey Epstein was born in New York City, and somehow this college dropout landed a gig teaching physics and math at the elite Dalton School. Wild, right? But it wasn't about teaching. It was about connections. One of his students' wealthy dads linked him to Bear Stearns, a Wall Street investment firm, and Epstein climbed the ladder fast. By the early 80s, he had his own firm, J. Epstein and Company, and was managing billions for unnamed clients. His wealth? Mysterious. His friends? Even more so. Donald Trump once called him a terrific guy in a 2002 interview and even said he likes beautiful women as much as I do, and many of them are on the younger side. Yeah? That didn't age well. Epstein's private life was one giant red flag. He owned one of the biggest homes in NYC, a private island in the Virgin Islands, a ranch in New Mexico, and a mansion in Florida. He hosted politicians, actors, and royalty. Clinton, Spacey, and Chris Tucker all flew on his infamous private jet, the Lolita Express. And still, for years, no one stopped him. Almost the same case as that of Diddy right now, because there are tons of allegations that big names in the industry kept a blind eye and Puff do whatever he wants to do. In 2005, the parents of a 14-year-old girl went to the Florida police. Epstein had allegedly assaulted their daughter at his Palm Beach mansion. cops raided the place and found photos of girls. Everywhere, walls covered in underage snapshots like trophies. Meanwhile, the FBI investigation got shut down. His co-conspirators left unnamed. His files sealed. Epstein walked out basically untouched. The message was clear: powerful people protect their own. But he couldn't hide forever. In 2019, federal prosecutors came knocking. Epstein was arrested after flying back from Paris. Authorities wanted to seize his Manhattan mansion, where new victims said they were trafficked. This time, the allegations included a vast network of underage girls, groomed, manipulated, and abused. Many allegedly recruited by Epstein's longtime associate and ex-girlfriend, Ghislaine Maxwell. In July 2020, the FBI tracked her to a luxury hideout in New Hampshire and arrested her. 1 year later, she was found guilty of sex trafficking a minor and sentenced to 20 years in prison. And years after his death, people are still wondering what really happened. Was he silenced before he could talk? Did he take the fall for bigger players? We may never know. What we do know is that Epstein kept blackmail material, lots of it, hidden cameras in his mansion, recordings, names, faces, and allegedly footage. That's how he stayed protected for decades, by owning the secrets of the powerful. And now, in 2025, we're seeing echoes of that in Diddy's trial. Same themes, same tactics, and maybe even some of the same players. Because Epstein may be dead, but the machine he built, it's still spinning.
Luring an aspiring artist with the promise of fame. Epstein, he used his wealth to create a vibe of power, pulling in young women with offers of opportunity. Now, both of these guys operate in circles that made exploitation feel normal. They had connections that helped silence victims and keep their dark activities hidden.
But here's what people missed. While Epstein was Wall Street's dirty little secret, Diddy might have been Hollywood's open one. And now, people inside the industry are finally talking under oath. According to multiple sources, Diddy's empire wasn't just about music, vodka brands, or flashy parties. Prosecutors say it was a machine, a system, an operation, just like Epstein's. And the most terrifying part? It wasn't hiding in the shadows. It was happening in plain sight. Now, during the most recent hearing, federal agents introduced a string of witness testimonies that drew chilling parallels between Epstein and Diddy. And that's when Diddy lost it. Let's talk about what was said. An anonymous witness allegedly described parties at Diddy's mansion, dubbed freak-offs, that eerily mirrored Epstein's social gatherings. Think young girls flown in, phones confiscated at the door, drugs offered like hors d'oeuvres, and cameras everywhere. Not the Instagram kind either. These were hidden cameras, surveillance-level setups tucked into walls, ceilings, even furniture, just like Epstein's Manhattan mansion. But this wasn't just about catching a vibe on tape. It was about control. One woman testified that Diddy recorded these acts without her consent. She didn't even know the cameras were there until he allegedly threatened her with the footage. According to her sworn statement, after she tried to cut ties and speak out, Diddy told her, "You open your mouth and everyone's gonna see what you did." It wasn't just a threat, it was a warning. He had the tapes, and she knew exactly what was on them. Another former associate claimed that these recordings weren't just for Diddy's private vault. They were part of a much darker system, a form of silent blackmail that helped Diddy protect his empire. According to their testimony, the footage was stored, categorized, and in some cases, shared. Not for fun, but for leverage. And the kicker? Some of the people caught on tape? Celebrities. Not just guests. Not just spectators. Participants. The courtroom allegedly fell into stunned silence when this next part came out. Several high-profile individuals, some of whom had already been mentioned during jury selection, were allegedly present at these freak-offs. Rappers like Kid Cudi, Kanye West, actor Michael B. Jordan, even Mike Myers. Their names were included in the initial list of personal and professional connections to Diddy. And while inclusion doesn't prove attendance, legal experts say that even being named by a witness could wreck careers. Because now, the guest list is a liability. According to a report from the U.S. Sun, the prosecution is expected to release a partial guest list of people connected to Diddy's alleged freak-off events.
Because now he's going after any celebrity who happened to be at the party and had knowledge of any drugs or alcohol or anything funny going into the baby oil. You celebrities are now an accomplice. So if you went to Diddy's party, you should be freaking the F out right now.
While not everyone on it will face charges, former federal prosecutor Naama Rahmani warned that this is only the beginning. He told reporters, if Diddy is convicted and others are implicated, they should certainly be worried that they may be next. There are two groups of people under the microscope. First, the participants, anyone who took part in the events, especially those accused of assaulting or abusing victims, could face charges or civil lawsuits.
I'd like to know who's on this list, so I'm just giving off the list of people who they believe are on this, starting with, in no particular order, folks. Oh my gosh. Serena Williams is on the list. David Beckham is on the list. Victoria Beckham is on this list. Will Smith, no surprise. Jada Pinkett Smith. Chris Brown. Oh my God, this just keeps flying.
Second, the enablers. People who helped plan the parties, book the venues, organize travel, handle security, clean up the mess. If the prosecution proves these freak-offs were premeditated and systemic, that's conspiracy, aiding and abetting, obstruction of justice, and possibly human trafficking. And remember, this is happening under RICO, Racketeer Influenced and Corrupt Organizations Act. The same law that took down mob bosses and drug cartels is now being used against a music mogul. Why? Because prosecutors believe this wasn't a series of isolated crimes. It was a structure, a business, with roles, routines, recruiters, and rules of silence. In fact, during the latest hearing, two witnesses, a male escort named Daniel Phillip and LAPD officer Israel Flores, both painted disturbing pictures of Diddy's behavior. Phillip described Diddy as having a craving for control, claiming he was recruited for what was described as a party, but what actually became a coerced and drug-fueled experience.
We thought the first officer's testimony was bad. This one was even worse. Claimed that Diddy dictated every single thing that Cassie wore, which was typically red lace and heels at all times. That he would see Cassie completely passed out after these events. And when she didn't listen to what Diddy told her to do, he would drag her by her hair and tell her, B-word, when I tell you to come, you better come now, not later. And when Daniel Phillip was asked why he didn't intervene to protect her, he said because Diddy's bodyguards were in the other room and he was fearful for his own life.
Flores, a law enforcement officer, testified that he had received multiple informal complaints from women who attended Diddy's events, but the cases never went anywhere. He said they were scared, terrified, not just Diddy, of what would happen if they crossed him. Now put that together with the video footage, the blackmail, the NDA agreements that one lawyer called mafia-level silence contracts. What you've got isn't just a scandal, it's a full-scale power operation. And just like Epstein, it worked for decades. Because the freak-offs weren't hidden, they were just ignored, a known secret in the industry. One insider claimed, everyone knew. But you don't talk about Puff, you don't mess with the circle, because he's got the tapes. And here's what makes it worse. While Epstein's empire was rooted in the shadows, Diddy's empire sat in the spotlight. The freak-offs happened in mansions, hotels, yachts. There were witnesses, staff, security, drivers, DJs. And yet, not a single high-profile witness has publicly spoken out. At least, not yet. But that may be about to change. With Diddy on trial, the court is now empowered to issue subpoenas. That means anyone named in testimony, celebrity or not, can be legally compelled to testify under oath. Refusing to show up, contempt, lying, perjury, admitting you saw what happened and did nothing, obstruction. It's no wonder so many of Hollywood's elite are suddenly silent. No tweets, no statements, no visits. Even some of Diddy's closest former allies are ducking the press. Because once the tapes are confirmed and the footage enters evidence, there's no hiding from the truth anymore. And if history repeats itself, like it did with Epstein, like it did with Maxwell, then Diddy won't be the only one going down. Now listen, this isn't a conspiracy channel, but when the courtroom is bringing up Epstein's name while prosecuting Diddy under RICO laws, you gotta ask, what exactly were they both running? Both had assistants cleaning up after the parties. Both had security teams trained to intimidate. Both had lawyers ready to squash whistleblowers with NDAs and hush money. Both allegedly used their influence to not just abuse, but recruit. Epstein had Ghislaine Maxwell. Diddy? That part's still unraveling. But multiple lawsuits have named his employees, his entourage, and even his own son, Justin Combs, as witnesses or enablers. Y'all, this isn't just about Diddy throwing a few wild parties. Prosecutors are painting this as a criminal enterprise. And that's why they're charging him with racketeering, the same legal weapon used to take down the mob.
Diddy could be facing life in prison over his RICO charge alone. This is the most important part that a lot of people have to understand when it comes to Diddy and all of his charges. The RICO charge, the racketeering conspiracy charge, is one of the charges that Diddy really has to be concerned about. And that is because the feds only have to prove two of the allegations that fall under the racketeering conspiracy charge, also known as RICO. All of the crimes that are falling under this racketeering conspiracy charge is coercion, trafficking, forced labor, kidnapping, arson, bribery, and obstruction of justice.
Let me repeat that. RICO charges. That's what they use when you're not just committing crimes, but running an organization designed to do it systematically. Now, here's what's really chilling. Diddy might not get the same exit. Jeffrey Epstein died before he could talk. Diddy? He's very much alive. And what's coming out isn't just about him, it's about everyone around him. We're talking assistants, bodyguards, hotel managers, producers, artists, influencers. People you know, people you followed for years. The same folks clapping it up at awards shows are now being named in court as witnesses to absolute horror. And here's where it gets darker. The surveillance. Remember, Epstein had his entire mansion wired with cameras, every hallway, every room. That's how he controlled his guests. That's how he stayed safe. He didn't need protection. He had leverage. And Diddy allegedly did the same thing. Victims say the freak-off parties were filmed. Some were told about the cameras. Others had no idea until they were threatened with footage afterward. That's not just illegal. That's weaponized blackmail.
Now, the government talked about how Cassie Ventura said that Diddy would record these videos on multiple different encounters and then tell her that he would release these tapes against her. And she found it humiliating and disgusting, and she wanted them deleted off the devices.
Legal experts are calling this horizontal coercion, meaning the abuse wasn't just physical. It was mental, economic, psychological. Victims were trapped by fame, money, and fear. One wrong move and your career's over. Your name gets dragged and you disappear. Now let's bring in Rachel Chandler. Yeah, the same woman accused of being Epstein's recruiter. She's been photographed with Diddy not once, but twice in the early 2000s. Coincidence? Maybe. But if she was Epstein's link to Hollywood, it makes you wonder, how deep does this go? Then there's Naomi Campbell, named in Epstein's court docs, also seen at Diddy's events. Again, no smoking gun, but way too many overlaps to ignore. These aren't random people. These are tightly knit circles with very dark secrets. Remember, Epstein didn't just hang with politicians. He was friends with billionaires, royals, and presidents. Diddy? His parties pulled in everyone from Jay-Z to Justin Bieber, Kanye, Kardashians, and even government officials. Yeah, government. According to insiders, some of them were present at those private parties too. And just like Epstein, Diddy seems to have mastered the art of surrounding himself with power, not just for clout, but for protection. Here's the deal. Epstein's connections weren't just rumors whispered through the internet. They were real, documented, archived. The newly unsealed court files confirmed names people had long speculated about, and some they never expected. Among them, Ethel Kennedy, the late matriarch of the Kennedy dynasty, was and mother of Robert F. Kennedy, former New York Governor Andrew Cuomo, ex-presidents, billionaires, tech moguls. You name it, Epstein had them in his Rolodex, or should we say, blackmail folder. His infamous Lolita Express and private Caribbean island were ground zero for the elite's dirtiest secrets. Powerful men flew in, partied in private villas, and left with favors owed or footage recorded. From Trump to Clinton, Bill Gates to royalty, Epstein didn't just know these people. He hosted them, and maybe even owned them. Bill Gates admitted in a 2023 interview that his meetings with Epstein were a huge mistake. His words, "I think I was quite stupid." You don't say. Gates thought he was talking about global health and philanthropy, but Epstein had other plans that always blurred the line between influence and exploitation. Sound familiar? Because now, Diddy's freak-offs are giving the same energy. The same blend of opulence, secrecy, and rot. According to courtroom testimony and insider reports, Diddy's events weren't just music industry mixers. They were engineered. Girls have been flown in, security on the payroll, rooms wired, blackmail material collected, A-list celebrities partying side by side with underage girls, high on who knows what, under the eye of hidden lenses. And now that he's facing RICO charges, the same legal hammer that took down Epstein's enablers, prosecutors are eyeing everyone who showed up, helped organize, or even knew what was going on. But here's where things get wild. Back in the Epstein files, there's a separate court document titled Mass Uses, and it reportedly contains 254 names, all redacted, every single one. To this day, no one knows who's on that list. But the mystery alone has sparked firestorms across the internet. Some say it's a who's who of political royalty. Others swear it includes celebrities still at the top of their game today. And the kicker? Some of those same names have been whispered in connection with Diddy's parties, too. Coincidence or connection? Because when you start putting the puzzle together, the parties, the blackmail, the NDAs, the secrecy, you start to see the same picture repeating. Epstein, Diddy, Weinstein. Different industries, same tactics, same patterns. Legal experts say the overlap is chilling. One prosecutor called it a shadow network, a covert class of the ultra-rich who moved silently across industries and borders, trading protection for power. And in that circle, silence wasn't just golden, it was currency. But the silence? It's cracking. With the release of the Epstein files, pressure is mounting on the DOJ to unveil the rest, including the redacted names and footage Epstein allegedly used to maintain control. And now, with Diddy's freak-off guest list possibly going public, insiders say we could be looking at a Hollywood domino effect. Because these weren't isolated incidents, these were systems. Epstein had his recruiters, Diddy had his assistants, bodyguards, and allegedly his own son facilitating. Epstein had an island. Diddy had luxury hotels and secret mansions. And both had cameras, had footage, had leverage. And the question everyone's asking now is, who's next? Because let's be real, it's never just one man. Epstein wasn't a lone wolf. Diddy didn't build this empire alone. There are handlers, planners, attendees, beneficiaries, and they're all nervous now. Even being named in connection with these events can be career-ending. Look at what happened to Prince Andrew. Once royalty with global influence, now disgraced, stripped of titles, and exiled from public life. Why? Because one accuser said she was forced to sleep with him while under Epstein's control. One photo, one witness, and the empire cracked. So if you're thinking this Diddy case is just about a few wild parties, think again. This is a system unraveling. A mask is being ripped off the elite's darkest secret, and it's only going to get messier. Because if the public gets a peek into what really happened at those parties, the names, the tapes, the victims, it won't just be Diddy on trial. It'll be Hollywood. But what does that tell you? That this isn't just about two powerful men. It's about a system designed to protect predators, a system that uses fame as a smokescreen and silence as currency. And this ain't the first time we've seen it. Harvey Weinstein, R. Kelly, Bill Cosby, and now Diddy. There's always that same pattern. Allegations surface, the public shrugs, victims get paid off, lawsuits vanish. Then, decades later, The truth spills out, and everyone acts shocked. But this time, the Diddy case is pulling threads that lead directly back to Epstein's old web. And if it keeps unraveling, whole industries are going down. The music biz, the fashion world, streaming giants, nightclub owners, private jet companies, even hotel chains. And let's not forget, Diddy's not just being accused of assault. He's being accused of using his entire business network to facilitate it. That means the clothing brands, the liquor deals, the studios, all potentially part of a larger operation. And if even half of that is true, the fallout will be historic. But what broke my heart was hearing from the survivors. Some stayed silent for 15 years. Others only came forward after watching other victims like Virginia Giuffre speak out against Epstein. One woman said she saw Diddy threaten another girl with leaked footage. Another said she was trafficked from state to state during his tours. Not a guest, not a groupie, a victim. Now, I know what y'all are thinking. Why now? Why is this all coming out now? Simple. Because powerful men are only useful to the elite until they're not. Epstein got sloppy. So did Weinstein. And now Diddy? He's outlived his usefulness. And suddenly the walls are closing in. But don't get it twisted. He was never the head of the snake. He was just a gatekeeper, a face, a brand. The real power? Still hiding, still pulling strings. So, what's next? If this trial continues, if more insiders flip, if more victims come forward, this could be the beginning of real change. The kind we didn't get after Epstein. The kind Hollywood's been avoiding for decades. But the question still stands. How many other Diddys are out there? Because this ain't just about one man. It's about the culture that protects him, the silence that lets him thrive. And the empire was built on fear, NDAs, and exploitation. And if we don't start talking now, if we keep looking the other way, then guess what? There will always be another Diddy, another Epstein, another generation of victims. So if you're tired of watching these monsters walk free, if you want more truth, more exposure, and more accountability, then hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, and drop a comment below. Because this story ain't over. Not even close. This is just the beginning.